In recent years, Labor have been slipping to the left in the vain attempt to appease the woke minority. They've kind of had to win power. In the 2022 federal election, the current Albanese Labor government were elected on one of the lowest primary votes in over 100 years, 32.58%. But thanks to preference flows, can you guess who from? Labor formed government. If you look at the results by individual electoral divisions, Australia is, at least geographically, a conservative country, shown in blue and brown. However, inner cities have a huge say due to high population density. Many inner city voters happily sip on their skimmed soy milk lattes without knowing how or where their soybeans and coffee come from. I guess the beans are grown with wind turbines and picked by solar-powered drones. By first preferences alone, then yes, most states and territories supported the coalition. However, after preferences, Labor came out on top in all states except Queensland. Of the 77 seats that Labor picked up, only 8 of those seats were won outright on first preferences alone. That is, these individuals achieved more than 50% of the vote. They won on their own merit. The remaining 69 candidates won on preferences, with the majority of Greens preferences flowing to Labor. It was no secret, on the Greens website, they were very open about where they wanted their preferences to flow. Preferences at a glance. Vote 1 Greens to kick the Liberals out. Putting Labor above the Liberals, your preferences can go to Labor. And just in case you didn't understand, the Greens are not preferencing Scott Morrison and the Liberals. For example, in the marginal seat of Gilmore, the Liberals' Andrew Constance secured 42% of the first preference votes. Labor's Fiona Phillips secured around 36% of the vote. Easy win for the Libs, right? Well, when we look at the preference flows of the next highest party, the Greens, we can see that 88% of their preferences flowed towards Labor, while only 12% went towards the Libs. Labor won the election because of Greens' preferences. There's no other way to look at it. Without the Greens' preferences, Labor would not be in power. It's a Mephistophelian bargain, an unwritten deal with the devil. Labor need the Greens, even if they hate admitting that. But now the chickens are coming home to roost, so to speak. It's no secret that the Greens are avid supporters of the pro-Palestinian anti-Israel movement. They've openly worn scarves in Parliament that represent Palestinian nationalism. They've staged walkouts from the Senate. They have basically inflamed tensions by publicly siding with the anti-Israel mob. A few weeks ago, doors at a Labor conference venue in Melbourne were locked after pro-Palestinian activists got past security and began yelling at delegates and speakers. And now, as a test of how far things can go, pro-Palestinian protesters are now attacking the offices of Labor MPs. This is the office of New South Wales Premier Chris Minns, whose office was vandalised and defaced with red paint, with the word murder spray-painted on. The office of Federal Attorney General Mark Dreyfus in Melbourne, whose job ironically is to oversee federal legal affairs and public security, was also attacked and smeared in red paint. Minister for the NDIS, Bill Shorten's office, also in Melbourne, has been defaced a number of times, I believe. He most recently said, "People have got a right to feel strongly about the distressing scenes in Gaza and in Israel, but there's a line and you don't cross it. The idea you are saying you're protesting for peace by being violent is like burning books for literacy. It's just rubbish." Premier of Victoria, Jacinta Allen, also commented on the recent vandalism. "It would not advance any cause in any way to see people going about doing their work feeling unsafe. It also will not change the course of the conflict in the Middle East," noting that Ms Allen only last week introduced the world's first parliamentary secretary for men's behaviour change to stop violence against women. Perhaps she needs to make a secretary for protesters' behaviour change. This is a picture of the ABC's Melbourne office, which was also vandalised with pro-Palestinian messaging. Perhaps surprisingly, the Parliamentary Secretary for Women's Health, Kat Theophanous' office, was also targeted by pro-Palestinian protesters in Melbourne. But the final straw was the targeting of the Prime Minister himself, Anthony Albanese, whose office is apparently uninhabitable. According to The Australian, the Prime Minister's Marrickville office has not been used since January because of fears for the safety of his staff from continuous protests from pro-Palestinian demonstrators and warnings from the federal police. I think Albo has let this go on long enough. His Mephistophelian bargain with the Greens and the woke left is now starting to backfire. The ABC are reporting bipartisan condemnation of Greens' involvement in pro-Palestinian protests. In question time on Wednesday, the PM said, "It is unacceptable that misinformation has been consciously and deliberately spread by some Green senators and MPs who have engaged in this in demonstrations outside offices and online. All of us have a responsibility to prevent conflict in the Middle East from being used as a platform for prejudice here at home. There is no place for anti-Semitism, prejudice of any sort, Islamophobia in our communities, at our universities, or outside electorate offices. Enough is enough. The time for senators and members of Parliament to continue to attend and inflame tensions outside these offices must end." Leader of the opposition, Peter Dutton, also said there was a bipartisan position in calling on the Greens to not condone the illegal acts of protesters. He said, "We're seeing now the offices of elected members of Parliament being targeted with red paint, with vile messages of hate and discrimination and anti-Semitism, and the Greens should condemn it instead of condoning it. What the Prime Minister does today in condemning the actions of those who seek for their own political purposes and their own political advancement to pour fuel on this fire deserves condemnation of this chamber." It seems like Labor and the Coalition have found some common ground, their dislike of the Greens Party. Greens leader Adam Bandt responded, "I will not be lectured to about peace and non-violence by people who back the invasion of Gaza. Children are dying because the Israeli army has engineered a famine, and instead of talking about the victims, the Prime Minister wants to make it about himself." It looks like the unholy alliance is crumbling. It's a shame Labor needs Greens votes to stay in power.